Hey Star Trek fans, welcome to the Star Trek Picard Deep Dive, where I take a look at the Easter eggs, canon connections, and continuity bits from the latest episode of Star Trek Picard. This is for episode 5, Stardust City Rag, written by Kirsten Beyer and directed by Jonathan Frakes. To start out with, let's get that first really difficult scene out of the way. We get a reunion of sorts, and I think a lot of people out there were hoping to see more characters from the past of Star Trek, and we kind of get our wish here, but in that kind of cursed monkey's paw, be careful what you wish for kind of way, when Icheb makes an appearance. Icheb, of course, from seasons 6 and 7 of Voyager. He was a rescued Borg drone, much like 7 of 9 was. 7 of 9 adopted him into her family with a number of other Borg children. By the end, Icheb was the only one to remain on Voyager, and it seems that over the years he achieved his goal of getting into Starfleet and becoming a Starfleet officer. However, he meets an untimely end here as he is being harvested for Borg parts by a villain named Bjayzl and mercy killed by 7 of 9. This is a very difficult scene, and I think intentionally so and necessarily so, as it is the end of a great character, I think. So a very sad scene here, and unfortunately his character seems to be kind of fridged for 7 of 9 here, but yeah, it's a difficult scene to watch, and the end of what I thought was a pretty good character in Voyager. Also, I should point out a particularly terrific bit of continuity when it comes to Icheb here. The woman extracting Icheb's Borg parts seems to be having difficulty locating his cortical node. Well, there's a very good reason for that. In the Voyager Season 7 episode Imperfection, Icheb actually donates his cortical node to save 7 of 9's life. And Icheb, being younger and stronger, is able to adapt to not having it. So kudos to the writers for that little bit of a continuity touchstone there. Very nice. In another flashback, we finally catch up with Bruce Maddox. Bruce Maddox, of course, has been the subject of Picard's search for the last few episodes, his assembling of the crew to find Bruce Maddox. He's a cyberneticist who was first seen in the TNG episode The Measure of a Man. He was kind of the villain of that piece who was wanting to take data away to disassemble and learn how to create more androids. It seems now he has achieved his goal of creating a sentient android in the form of Daj and Soji, the two android twins. Bruce Maddox is played by a different actor than played him originally, but I think the character is still very recognizable as Bruce Maddox, and he's given a much greater range of things to play than the character originally was more than 30 years ago now. During this scene, Bruce is offered a drink of Tranya. Tranya has made an appearance several times in Star Trek, but was first introduced in the first regular production episode after the pilots of the original Star Trek series, the Corbomite Maneuver. And it was Clint Howard's character of Baylock who offered Tranya to the Enterprise crew that was visiting his ship, the Fesarius. So this is a deep cut reference that goes way back to the earliest days of Star Trek.
We must drink. This is Tranya. I hope you relish it as much as I.
After the opening credits, we learn a bit of 7 of 9's backstory. She is in fact part of the Fenris Rangers and has gained a certain amount of notoriety as 7, the ex-Borg Fenris Ranger from the Delta Quadrant, as Captain Rios puts it. This is another exploration of where a character has gone after we've seen them in their original series. 7 of 9's path has taken a fairly dark turn, as she says to Picard after the Federation abandoned the worlds in this region. She took it upon herself to work with the Fenris Rangers to protect them after the collapse of the neutral zone and that sort of thing. So it's an interesting path for 7 to take, and we'll see, of course, later in the episode, the dark places that has taken her character. I really think Jerry Ryan and 7 of 9 really pushed this episode into some interesting places, and I would love to see more of 7 of 9's character as she is now and learn more about her. And hopefully, given the way things are left at the end of the episode, I feel like this might be a character we see again as we get more episodes of Picard. So now the La Sirena finally makes it to Freecloud and Stardust City. Now this establishing shot of Stardust City has a few Easter eggs for us to look at, the most prominent of which, of course, is Mr. Mott's Hair Emporium. Of course, Mr. Mott was the Bolian hairdresser aboard the Enterprise D, seen in a number of episodes, including Ensign Rowe and a few other episodes like that, where he was giving his opinion on the affairs of the ship, not just his excellent haircutting. But as Riker said, what can you do? He's the best barber in Starfleet. So they had to put up with him, but apparently he's moved on to greener pastures now here on Freecloud. Also seen in this shot is Quark's bar. Apparently Quark has franchised his establishment, seen on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He, of course, was a main character in that show, running the bar on the promenade of DS9. Now we see another version of that bar. Presumably this is the bar in which most of the action of this episode takes place, if it is in fact the establishment that Rios enters. Quark also gets another shout out later in the episode when Mr. Vup is examining Rios's references and says Mr. Quark of Ferenginar was an especially good reference because of the help that Rios had provided him with the Breen. The Breen, of course, were an often mentioned antagonist in TNG and Deep Space Nine. In Deep Space Nine, we finally got to see them, sort of. They still wore these kind of suits that hid their identity, supposedly their refrigeration suits, although that's been called into question by Weyoun in Deep Space Nine. But anyway, that's all put to one side. They allied themselves with the Dominion during DS9 and attacked Earth in the final season of that show. So lots of history with the Breen there as well. We get a couple of Risa references in this episode. First of all, the motto of Quark's bar seems to be, "What's yours is ours," which would seem to be a play on the Rysian catchphrase of "What's ours is yours." "What's yours is ours" is definitely more in keeping with a traditionally Ferengi outlook on the world. And "what's yours is ours" could almost be the wording of a rule of acquisition. It just has that particular ring to it. The second Risa reference comes when Rios orders a drink at the bar. He orders a Temtibby Lagoon. Now, the Temtibby Lagoon was the location in the Deep Space Nine episode Let He Who Is Without Sin, where Worf, Jadzia Dax, Lita, Bashir, and Quark all spent their vacation when they visited Risa in the, I believe it was 5th season of Deep Space Nine. In this episode, we learn what Rafi's reason for visiting Freecloud is. It is to reunite with her estranged son, and we learn more about her relationship with her son Gabe and her husband, which was all thrown into disarray with her helping of the aid mission to Romulus and evacuating refugees, her single-minded focus on that. And of course, we also learn her obsession with the conspiracy theory, supposed conspiracy theory, about the attack on Mars led to her estrangement from her family. If you would like to learn a little bit more about Rafi's backstory, and I know I've mentioned this before, check out the Una McCormick novel, Star Trek Picard, The Last Best Hope. And it goes into a lot more detail about the backstory of Rafi and her relationship with her family and what kind of led to that estrangement. Definitely worth checking out. I wouldn't say it's a must read to understand things in Picard, but it is definitely very closely tied to the story, and I would highly recommend checking it out. One particular touch that I really enjoyed in this episode was when 7 of 9 beams off the La Sirena for the last time to exact her revenge against Bjayzl. We hear a few notes of the Star Trek Voyager theme just before she beams out. I'm loving, again, I've said this in almost every video, but I am absolutely loving the musical work of Jeff Russo in this series. His themes have been incredible with their, I would say, subtlety, but also kind of in your face about some of the stuff as well. There's a lot of little tiny subtle notes that you don't pick up on until later, and then sometimes there'll be something that's just right in your face and just hits you at the right moment, like this Voyager theme when Seven leaves. And finally, some people's suspicions about Agnes Girardi are borne out at the end of this episode when she seemingly murders Bruce Maddox, her former lover and colleague, in an incredibly emotional moment. We all kind of seem to have our suspicions about her. I kind of thought she was just spying on the mission for Commodore O, but it seems that her treachery goes a lot deeper than just that. I was kind of thinking that maybe she was under some form of mind control, but it does seem that she has made a conscious decision to do what she's doing because of what she has seen, what she has been shown, which she wishes she hadn't seen, apparently. So some interesting things here. I do like the use of the EMH in these scenes. The fact that he pops up, what is the nature of your psychiatric emergency? And the first time you think it's because she's freaking out about operating the transporter, but by the end you realize it's a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more to it than that. I really have to credit the writers of this episode for planting some great foreshadowing throughout that you don't quite know what it means until the end, and then you can kind of go back and see that it had a lot more meaning than we'd realized at the start. So an extremely well-constructed episode, an extremely affecting episode, lots of strong emotions at play here. Again, I think Jerry Ryan just hit this out of the park, but I would also like to cite Michelle Hurd for some great acting work and the pain she feels between her and her son. I think those are some great scenes. I have to say, finally, after 4 episodes of mostly setup, it's great to kind of have a little bit more payoff here, and it looks like we're going to get even more payoff throughout the rest of the season, or at least in the next episode, as the La Sirena finally makes it probably to the Borg cube and what is waiting there for Picard and his motley crew. So join us over the next few videos. I'll have a reaction video to the new episode, which is called The Impossible Box, and I will also be doing a live show with Bruce and Brandy on Friday for that episode as well, of course, and my Easter egg video like this one, which hopefully won't come out quite as late as this one did. I am sorry that it took a while to get this one out, but hopefully I can get back on track and get these coming out a little sooner for you. Thank you to the Patreon supporters, of course, for their help in bringing these videos to you. I really do appreciate it. I could not do it without you. Thank you to everyone else for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and mostly just watching. I really love seeing your comments and your reactions to my thoughts. And again, if I missed any Easter eggs that you caught in this episode, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but in any case, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and live long and prosper. Of course, Mr. Mott was the Bolian bartender. Nope.